You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, people-centric leaders, guess what? I know what you're thinking. What episode is this of the podcast? We know that this is the most important thing when you tune into this podcast. Which episode am I listening to? I know you woke up this morning and you were excited to download. What, Diana, how do you say it? Download, load down? Download.
It's not load down. Who are you?
Download this episode.
Why did you all of a sudden turn into a very, very old boomer?
I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I did not. I am not, but that's okay. So anyway, this is our 200th episode of the People Centric Podcast. I feel like we should all make noise. There we go. So here's what we decided to do today. Now, one of the things we just talked about is that you don't care. That's the thing. You as a listener probably don't care that it's a 200th episode. You're like, oh, good, another clip show. Because I hate clip shows. Everybody hates clip shows. Nobody likes to get on there and say, I would like to watch small clips of old episodes that I've already seen before. That's not why I waited for this moment to come together. So what we did decide to do, though, is we wanted to still do something kind of special for our 200th. So we have 6 out of 7 of our team members on. And I could say 6.5, right? Because we have Audrey's joining us for this one. And you'll get to see her a little bit in a second. But what we want to talk a little bit about is, why do we do the things we do? Why do we work? So our team's going to talk a little bit about why we work at People Centric, why we do the things we do, what you can get out of work, maybe share some stories about what you shouldn't get out of work. You know, we can share a little bit of that. But some of you listening are probably drive to work in the morning not thinking about that stuff. You probably are driving to work because it's time. And you start the day at 8 o'clock or whatever the time is, and you're driving to work because that's what you have to do. But you're not thinking about, do I really enjoy it? But you're going to spend about 35-40% of your entire life will be spent at work. So why don't we enjoy it? And we know that statistically in the US, it's about 1 out of 3 people feel engaged in their job, and 2 out of 3 people feel disengaged or toxic in their job. So we're going to try to set the bar here a little bit and talk about, why do we do the things we do? So with us here, just so you can hear the voices, if you're joining us on YouTube, you can see us, and you can see that many of us are dressed very similarly. One of us is dressed very differently. I'm not going to say which one it is, but Matt's with us. Matt, what color are you wearing today on your shirt?
I think it was described as orange by somebody, but if you were actually here with me, it would be, I would say, coral, maybe salmon, is what it is. And what's interesting about this is I saw a picture of me wearing this shirt from Easter 2 years ago. This is a true story. Easter 2 years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that shirt. Went to the closet and found it this morning to put on. So that's how I came to this. And gosh, I hope everybody's watching on YouTube, because you can see just a glimpse into the story of my life working at People Centric, because everybody else introduces themselves. So see a different picture of myself and the rest of these people. So
Matt in his bright, optimistic colors of salmon or coral.
Yeah.
Everything. You are kind of a spring colors guy.
I like the colors. Yeah, I like I'm the salmon jacket guy, right? I mean, I like the colors. So yeah, more color is better.
More color is better. Okay. All right. Well, and let's keep going around the horn here so that you can hear all the voices. So we've got Bethany here from our team.
Hi.
Bethany, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
You have a guest. Good. You have a guest with you today?
Say hey. Wait. Say hi.
She's gonna
Audrey's
wave
with us today. She's just looking at you guys.
I noticed Audrey's not in all black.
She's not. She's so colorful and
very colorful.
Very cute romper. So this, if we want to do baby fashion and men's fashion, we can.
Is Matt actually wearing a romper?
Oh, that would be.
That's another episode, Philip. It's another episode.
Maybe a whole other podcast, frankly. Yeah.
whole nother one. Philip is with us here too. Philip, have you ever worn a romper?
No, but I aspire to be so confident that I rock a romper on a Friday. However, the shirt I'm wearing is slightly green, and I'm wearing it because my sister borrowed it to make a film, and it was hanging first thing in my closet. So it was convenient, easy today.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So I like that we're kind of intertwining some family stuff here because the theme today is like, why do we do what we do? And some of that is for like family and some other people. And, people in our lives like Audrey are terrible drains on our resources. She has not had a single job ever. I'm not trying to put that out there, but she hasn't. And so we have to support ourselves and our loved ones and all of those. Stephanie, which loved one would you like to stop supporting as soon as possible? Is there somebody in your family you just like to cut out that you want to share just right now? Go ahead and just let it fly. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Are you trying to get me killed? Like, you've met some of my family, and listen, they're probably not listening. I don't know that they've listened, but like, if they were, this would be the one they'd listen to. And then I would just be savaged by them, whatever that answer is. So none of them or all of them, they can go either way.
Your family is very sweet. So we have
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
they're pretty great.
They're very, very
also
nice.
in the black t-shirt club today.
Yes. Yeah, that seems to be the theme there. And then of course we have Diana, who we talked to at the very, very beginning of all of this. Diana, let's start with you, and we'll go around. Why do we do the things that we do here? So like Diana actually is one, like we were a real company today. Like we're real. When Diana joined us, we were barely a real company. Like we were this, just to go back in our history of People Centric. So a lot of times people think, do you just do this podcast? I've heard that question a couple of times. No, that would be a terrible living. We do not make a living on this podcast. If you notice, there's no ads on this podcast. We decided to do that because we think you would hate that. And that's not why we're doing this. But back in the day, how long ago? 11 years ago now, right?
Oh,
11.
Yeah.
It was 11 years ago. We had an office in an old abandoned apartment building that we got for $3 per square foot. Like we got so much space. Like, how much space do you want? You can have as much of it as you want to. And I was looking out the window because Diana was coming in for an interview, and there's no signs that says People Centric anywhere outside the building because we didn't want to be associated with the building at all. And Diana gets out of her car and looks up at the building and looks on her phone and looks up at the building and looks down on her phone. It's like, well, this is the right address. And I can see Diana trying to make a decision of, do I go in here? And I'll bet she texted somebody that she knew, like, here's where I'm at this address. If I don't call you in 5 minutes, please send somebody to get me, right? All the things. But Diana used to have a real job. And then you came to join this People Centric thing that wasn't even a thing yet. What's wrong with you? That's my question.
Oh, I questioned it for a while, so I'm not sure. No, I do know. Okay, so yes, I did have a real job. I was, we all have real jobs. But when I joined here, there was no phone, there was no like systems. It was just like Dawn's brain and all of these cool ideas. And I was like, this sounds really neat, but how do we do this? I think I was like, what's the phone number to the office? And you were like, we don't have a phone. And I was like, how did clients call you? And he was like, that's a great point.
They do not.
What?
At that time, that was not a thing. They do not call us. Why?
Yeah.
Should they?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, but I think what originally got me interested in this job in this company was that it was making work not feel as worky, right? And that sounds stupid, but it just made it feel like it was something that everybody has to do. We're there a bunch of time during our week. We're investing our time and energy and passion. How do you make it good? How do you make it okay? How do you make it feel worthy of your time and passion and interest? And I thought that was a really cool concept. And I carry that with me today. So I think it's changed for me over the years, but that was my original motivation.
That's cool. Thank you, Diana. That was a risky question, I suppose. You could have been like, I had no place else to go. There was no place else to go.
Plenty of options, sir. Just never forget that.
Diana has always had lots of options because Diana is very well known in our community here. And then I'm sure maybe somebody in Seattle knows who you are. I don't know. maybe that's a thing. So, okay, let's go around. Matt, you've been with People Centric for a long time too, and you left a cushy job in corporate America. And we talk about like the corporate job, which is a good job and good employer and all the things. I'm not bashing that, but talk a little bit about the difference. Like what's the difference in the culture of a big corporation, maybe in a smaller company? What things have you noticed?
I think we've talked about this maybe before, but it's been a while. If you've ever been a part of corporate America, the reason why people put it in air quotes is corporate America. It's very corporate-y, or it's almost a buzzword to be corporate-y there too. I mean, you're talking about a lot of red tape, talking about a little fish in a big pond, talking about I have a voice, but probably doesn't matter because there's many, many layers that you're going to have to get through. You're talking about maybe even, and we see this a lot too, but the larger the corporation, it's hard to get things done. The larger the corporation, you might be surrounded by lots of people and things, but you don't have the right resources or the available resources to be able to do the thing. And it's hard to get the resources to be able to do the thing because there's, I don't know, request forms and approvals and layers. And it's just very, very heavy. Corporate is very, 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 very heavy versus coming, to a smaller organization. And honestly, this is one of the things that I had to think long and hard about before I ever did that, because there's a insecurity of doing that whenever you work for one of the largest banks in the world. And it's like, I'm just kind of a number, which on one hand stinks. On the other hand, I mean, it's not a bad thing, right? 401ks, you just ride it out. I mean, Don, you came from the same experience. You can just ride it out if you want to, and benefits are there. And sure, sometimes the work is satisfying, but then you go to a smaller organization, there's lots of questions. Like I think when we started, of course, benefits have had an evolution since we've started, but there was no 401k, right? I didn't know what to do with that. There was no dental, I think maybe at the time, or anything. I mean, nothing like that. Those things that you would say now are like obvious things. We joke about that, going to different organizations and saying, hey, who offers medical? Who offers dental? Who offers 401k? So does everybody else. Well, we did not. We did not. And sometimes I think working for a smaller organization, you might that might be the sticker shock originally that it doesn't have the things, but you will find too, I think, at least the benefit for me initially was, the opportunity to be able to make a bigger impact in a smaller amount of time. Being able to, I was intrigued immediately by just being able to help people do whatever it was that they wanted to do at a higher level, not even industry specific. And so I think it's just less heavy at a smaller organization, which took me a minute to wrap my mind around. But that I think initially that was definitely this one of the selling points anyway for me.
And I like how, Matt, you and I both share corporate stories, and it sounds like you could say like, well, there's pluses and minuses of the corporate and the small companies, and you talked about like security, things like that, but it's also like what you get to do. Like you've had moments at the bank where you got to do the things that you really like to do, and you share fond memories of those things. I think we actually had an opportunity. I was in one of the rooms that was the training room that you were in, and I took a picture and I sent it to you, and you shot back and you're like, yeah, that was my old stomping grounds. That was my room. I owned that room when I was doing presentations and things.
Well, and I will tell you too, like and I'll just give a shout out to them as well. But like if they have resources, they had resources for development and training and learning. A lot of the things that I learned about facilitation and things like that was because they had the resources to be able to invest and put you through things like that too, which is has kind of built me into who I am today, which is also that's positive too, I guess.
Yeah, that's positive too. I guess it's built you into what you are. Yeah, that's good. Bethany, listen, like you joined our team and then we all had to go home, like not too long before the pandemic on everything, but like we were starting to be more of a real company by then. Like we've been, and we have stuff, like I think it's real.
Yeah, there was stuff, definitely.
Yeah. So what made you join? You've had some meandering a little bit in your career in terms of what you wanted to do. You were a recruiter for a little while. You were getting into communications and marketing world for a little while, and then you came like this direction. Can you talk a little bit about like that journey for you and why you went the direction that you went?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd worked at a startup before, so I kind of had been in an environment where it was like I was used to things being built kind of simultaneously. Like as you're doing business, you're also creating like new things and new processes and just like building all that stuff at the same time. So I had been in that kind of environment like right out of college, which was kind of a cool experience to see a business just kind of grow. And also like you decide like if you want to grow with that business in the direction that they're going to. And so it's very nimble and flexible. And so there was that, and that was in like content marketing world, and then moved into something that was just like better for my family too, and made that decision. And so that was like recruiting for a private university, and was like a pretty fully remote position. And so yeah, luckily that ended pre-pandemic, because it probably would have ended during that pandemic anyway. So I look back on that and think like, wow, that was actually really great timing of all of that. And so so then whenever I came to People Centric, I just didn't even I honestly didn't even know this was a thing that people did. It was like not on my radar at all. I don't even, I didn't know anybody in the organization. So I think it's like, to me, I always think it's like interesting. It's like, I really, even though I was from this area locally, I didn't have a lot of connections to you guys. So it was really interesting to me. I was like, I don't know how this happened. I think I found you guys I was like an Indeed, literally. I think I found you guys on Indeed, and had no connection to you, and just got to know this team and learn more about, the things that you guys are doing, and that you are working both locally with lots of the businesses that I have seen and interacted with. But then hearing that you have such a wide reach and have been working across the country in different places, even though it was such a small team. And so I had just never interacted with an organization that just prioritized the things that People Centric prioritize. And I thought it was really cool. It was just a different way of looking at how to do business, and that we really are trying to put people first in all of those things. And so yeah, it was cool. I feel like there was something else I was gonna add to that, but I don't remember now. So does that answer the question?
It does. And I like what you just said, because I think if you've listened to Diana and Matt and Bethany talking about like their journey, and I'm going to go to Stephanie and Philip here next, in that, or I'm going the order of tenure, by the way, if you haven't figured all that out. So that's where we're going. So sorry, Philip, you're going to be last, but that's where we're at. But I think you're hearing a lot. I hope that you're hearing a lot of the same things that you probably think about as a listener, as you've thought about your career. There's very practical things just in terms of like your family and what you need in terms of what works with your lifestyle. There's also the what do you do. There's also the possibility that maybe the what you do and you get excited about may not even be something you know exists. Bethany, you're not the first person I've ever heard say that. Like, I had no idea that a job like that even existed.
Yeah.
I know Matt's heard that when we go to conferences a lot, and when we'll hear people and they'll come to us and say, like, I did not know that what you do, people did what you even do. And it sounds amazing. Yeah.
It's cool. I feel like that was the piece that I was thinking of was like just the level of influence that we get to have, which I'm not saying that I'm here for the power, but no, I just think like we do get to have some cool influence on organizations in ways that like not a lot of people do, and it's for good, right? Like it's to promote good and right things. And so I really value that opportunity. And so that's one reason that I love doing what we do.
Yeah, it's fun to watch our clients. We often say, like, we're not trying to make our clients people centric. We're trying to help them be themselves, be who they are. And when we watch them succeed and do what they do, and we know that we got to have some part in that, not that we did it, but we help them to create systems, processes that help them to do it better, it is very, very rewarding. So, and then we've got Stephanie. Stephanie, I mean, you joined us from some like international business experience. You've created over 200 women-owned businesses in Ethiopia, or help, not you didn't, but you helped others.
Yes, I did not open all of them. The women get all that credit.
You did not. Yeah. And I keep joking, the running joke that we have that everybody really loves is I said, Stephanie's at 200. I'm a little below that. I don't know how far below that, but I've got less. But yeah, Stephanie, I mean, what drove you? You've got a very diverse career experience in what you've done. You've come from the nonprofit world. You've done some consulting before coming in, helping specific businesses to be able to grow. You've done some recruiting, some sales things a little bit too. Talk about like your career journey and why did you end up here?
Why are you here?
Why are you here,
You pay
Stephanie?
me to be here, Don. No, just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I will say I have always loved like business. And even like from like a little kid, my dad was a small business owner when I was a kid. And then both my parents have been in education. And so like having a little bit of a front seat to seeing like how certain businesses work. I was always really interested by that. But kind of as Don mentioned, I am a very mission driven person, and my life ambition is kind of like leave the world better than I found it, which took me into nonprofit work pretty early in my career, in lots of different positions. I worked at like a giant multinational nonprofit right out of college that had like, thousands of employees. And so you run into like the corporate red tape of like, wow, I'm stapling a lot more papers than I thought I would and changing the world and mailing a lot more envelopes. And then went into some consulting. I did a previous consulting that was a little more like marketing and how do you get people involved in good causes consulting, and then went into like true nonprofit work where I did a lot of international work helping launch women's empowerment programs, working with youth in foster care, and just kind of got to a point where I was like, like if you've worked in nonprofit before, and I'm sure Philip will talk about this too, it's so great and wonderful and also incredibly, incredibly exhausting. And I think I got to the point where I had worked at several different companies of very different sizes and different like missions and things that they were trying to accomplish, like from like a startup where there were like 4 of us to, yeah, okay, I'm a part of a Fortune 100 company that like really I am a very small piece of this. No one really knows who I am. To see that like there were some similarities there of like, yeah, like, a lot of people are what I would now call like disengaged, and like, wow, it just seems like life is too short to work somewhere you hate. And I know there's like a little bit of privilege in saying that, but also like I just really believed that. And it was something I was like, wow, like I wish this was different. And so I started feeling like, man, like I'd love to get back on the other side of that at some point in my career and maybe work with a lot of different businesses and do things that would make a difference in the world, and do that more from the individual level versus like I used to have the like, just give me a cape and I'll save the whole planet. And I really burnt out doing that, quite frankly. I think did some really cool things, made a lot of impact, but I think I started realizing, okay, maybe the way that my mission and desires of what I want to accomplish in my life, and then also the strengths that I have, maybe I could use that in more of a localized way. And kind of how Bethany mentioned, we do get to sit in a really different seat in a company. And when we work with our clients, to be able to help, like give them some vision and strategy for where they could go and help them get there. But like you said, Dawn, of like, not us coming in and owning the change. And I think that was probably the most attractive thing to me, aside from the mission of People Centric. When I learned about People Centric and met Dawn at a board retreat I was at, I was on a board, we brought Dawn in to facilitate, and that's how we met. And was that it was not the typical consultant approach, because I had experienced that working in a consulting role before. And I had had companies who brought in consultants where they basically came in and did a massive evaluation for everybody and then said, here's what you suck at, and here's how much you have to pay us. And it was huge amounts. And we didn't really get a lot out of it, frankly, or the change didn't always stick. And so I loved the idea that, wow, like there's a totally different way of doing this that actually engages people and gets them to lead and own the transformation. And we can help guide them there and provide tools and resources and input, and maybe help them have that vision for their company of like being people centric as an organization. And what if we put people first?
I like how you talked about, and several of you mentioned the idea of like the mission of the organization seems to be important. And some of you may be listening right now going, is this just a commercial for People Centric of working at People Centric? Yes, applicants, go to our website, you can look and see if we have anything's open, right? But no, it's really like our core is that whatever you do, that you find joy in it. Like whatever you do. And so we're trying to point to the joy, not to People Centric necessarily. It's the joy. I think one of the themes that I heard, I think all of you say, was what's important is the mission of the organization aligning with your mission. Like I want to do these things and the company's trying to do these things and I'm fitting into this together. That seems to be a theme that we've heard. Philip, you're the newest person on our team. You just passed your 1 year anniversary. Congratulations. You celebrated by going to Scotland, I believe, after going to Seattle the year before on your first week. I also got Philip also joined our team. It is just kind of a funny side story. Philip literally joined our team where his first days at work were on our team retreat in Seattle. So like, what an interesting, like talk about jumping in the deep end. A team of people that have worked together for a while, like we're doing a retreat and it's like, hey, come, we're going to travel all the way across the country and we're going to hang out and we're going to do some things in Seattle. But yeah, Philip, talk a little bit about like your career and your search and how what you find, how you find joy in your job.
Well, unlike Stephanie and everyone else, like I actually should confess, I guess I'm doing this really wrong because I've been volunteering this last year. I have not gotten a pay. I mean,
Thanks,
Diana,
guys. Thanks for guys for pointing that out to Philip. That
yeah,
you, rest of you get
I
paid for
am
this.
missing out. I love to serve so much that gosh, it's getting even better to work here. I love it. That's no,
I
I
mean,
am super lucky.
he does get access to the water in the fridge if he
I do
wants
get
it.
water. It's filtered water.
Although this was the last one. I'm sorry.
Water and
Sometimes,
charm. There's
sometimes the
loads of it
coffee.
around here. Yeah.
It's
No,
giving
well,
caffeine.
I remember too the final test for People Centric. I had already said yes, and they said yes, and then I said yes, and then all the yeses, and then I said, hey, can I just invite myself to that party you're gonna have in Seattle? Like, why don't I, instead of joining you a week later, can I come? And everyone said yes. And it was definitely a great, quick, in-depth way to get to know the team. And my story, the Cliffs Notes is, during high school, I worked for a local mom and pop shop that literally has the name Mama in it, Mama Jeans. And then through college, I worked a corporate internship with Liberty Mutual where they were so proud of being a Fortune 50 company. When I said, we're a Fortune 100 company, the whole sales team would correct me very passionately, like, Philip, we are a Fortune 50. Like there was a period, a very big period there. Not an exclamation mark, like, you're not loving it necessarily, to Stephanie's point, the golden handcuffs for real. One of my good friends and mentors there took me out to lunch one day, and I'm still thinking it's because she wanted good for me. She didn't want to keep more sales for herself. And she said, do not do it. I make way too much money to ever leave, but I want a job where I could love life and my family more. So run. So that was great. I ran, and that's what got me into nonprofit. Volunteered with a local place, and then started doing development with a nonprofit before here. And I would say the common theme in everything I've done is friend raising. I just like to get people together to then go do something good. And what I love of how we do that as a team, one of our 8 people-centric truths is worthiness, talking about how people are worthy. And I think that's the common theme, like why we do all of this. We're all worthy as a good team to be good team members for each other. And my very most honest question to Stephanie before I joined, like the secret hidden phone call. We always talk about if the real work culture comes out in the secret phone call. And I called her after my first interview. And I said, all of this seems great, but is it real? Do you actually like working there? And she said, it's true. The things are true. And after, it's 14 months, they have been. So like Bethany said, there's nothing really else to add. We get to make really cool things happen alongside people that care about what they're doing. And I think the commonality is like people know that they and their team are worthy, and then they ask for help. And I think of philanthropy, that was the push of like worthy philanthropy. Like we serve humankind because humankind is worth serving, and we get served in the process. So that's why I love working at People Centric.
Oh, thank you, Philip. That's good. You're going back to the purpose thing again. So here's the question, because we're talking about, and Philip, I'm glad you brought up the you are worthy idea, because we talked about, Stephanie, you brought up the idea of like even a little bit of the privilege. And I get it. Like a lot of you are working jobs because you have to work those jobs and you got to make your money and you got to do all the things. And like, we get that. And this is no disrespect intended here. We just think that everybody is worthy of really enjoying your time So what is it that, or finding purpose in? It's not even enjoying the time. It's not a satisfaction job. It's a job where you're engaged. There's a difference between engagement and satisfaction, right? Satisfaction is like, well, I go to work and they pay me and I do the thing and it's okay. I like it. There's cake in the break room and there's whatever the things are. Engagement is I'm all in, like I'm in on the purpose. And you heard our team talk about the mission of the organization. Let's talk about it from the company's perspective first, and then I want to talk about it from the employee's perspective. What should we expect from our organization, our employer, that would help us to really connect with them? Like what should we be looking for to find a job that has purpose that we can feel engaged in?
I've talked about this with one reason that I quickly was like, okay, I feel like I'm in the right place at People Centric, is that I felt like I had a leader or people who were acknowledging what my strengths were and then putting me in the right positions to be able to use those strengths. And so I think that that's something I would highly suggest for people, is to kind of gut check that, to not just say, like, if your strengths and it's like it kind of looks like I could do that job description and maybe I'd be good at that, but to be able to have a really strong understanding and connection to knowing that you have people who are going to be kind of leading and developing you, and making sure that they understand all the things that you're really good at and the ways that you're gifted, and are going to do their best to kind of make sure that's aligned with the work that's being put in front of you. And if it's not, to be able to have the conversations, to make adjustments if needed. And so I don't think that happens in a lot of places. I think it's really just like, well, this is what our job description is, and we just need somebody to fill it, and that's that. And so that's the piece that I think is really important too.
Yeah, I will piggyback on that because I was going to say something really, really similar. Of like, yeah, like it's a company that wants to know what your ambitions are and how you want to grow. And then they're determining, like, does that align with where we're headed as a company and how we want to grow? And it's like kind of checking that alignment from day one, not just like, hey, can you practically do this job? It's, is this how you want to grow and what you want to do? Because this is where we're headed, and this is what our vision is and what we're hoping for. And to see if you're aligned from the beginning, which also means I think it's a company that's kind of like honest about who they are and where they're going and what their strengths are. And also like they know who they're not too. And they know maybe what they aren't going to do as a company or where their weaknesses are as an organization. I think a lot of companies, when people are interviewing, they just are like, oh yeah, we do it all, and we're great at everything, and sky's the limit, and everything is possible. And gosh, I'm an optimist, and that's lovely. But I think a company that can be honest about, like, here's who we are and what our strengths are, and here's who we're not, and here's what we're working to improve, or maybe we're never going to touch some of those things. And so that way you can know, okay, is that what I want to do? Is that the type of work that I want to work in? Is that the type of team that I want to be a part of?
So if we're looking for an employer that gives us purpose, that goes against even what we say, right? Because empowerment's not, they don't have to give you purpose, you have purpose. But if an employer that says, here's what we need, and then gets an opportunity to look at you and says, okay, here's the things that you can provide, and let me give you opportunities to use your strengths with some choice towards our common purpose, that you have your purpose and we have our organizational purpose, that sounds like a pretty good job. That sounds like a pretty good employer. So if you're looking for things, it may not be the big or small. I like that we talked about some of the nuances of that, and there's some of that. It may not even be what the day-to-day work conditions look like, but if we can get back to those basic things, that's going to be a good employer. But what we're talking about here, if you're thinking about real engagement, is really a relationship, and it's a relationship between the employer and the employee. What's our role as employees inside the company in that? What do we bring to the table for the employer that helps us to feel engaged and excited about the job?
I was thinking, I think reputation and depth are two things that really attract me. So before joining our team, right, I asked a million questions to our team, and they were like, hey, yeah, these are cool questions. Probably too many questions, but there was like the process, and they leaned into that. I got to really dig into like know what this is about. And the reputation, I asked probably 5 times more people than like that work here, way more. I asked them about People Centric. I know that you work with them. You're on their website, and how is that? And you helped with this, and you helped with that. Kind of like kick the tires. And I think if you're looking both as an employee and then someone who currently works somewhere, like those are important things. If you genuinely hate your job and that's the only thing you talk to your friends about, they are never gonna want to work there, and they probably won't want to do business there. So even if you have problems, but it's like, or do you actually like your job and you talk to people about that? And that's an interesting dynamic. So working somewhere, I think it's like engaging that and knowing that, it's kind of like being a part of a family. I think in some ways, you know your family really well. When you're on a team somewhere, you know way more than anybody else. But I think how you represent that, both as like wearing the hat of a team member, and then even when that hat is off after work hours, like kind of measuring yourself about like how you approach work in that way. And if you still like work when the hat is off, then you're in the right place, and probably telling people the same thing.
I like that a lot, because you think about, you said reputation, and at first it sounds like, well, you're talking about the company's reputation, but you're not. Reputation comes from the people within the company. So are you carrying yourself in a way where the company feels, okay, that you're representing us well, you're representing the team well, you're representing each other well. That can happen both working outside of the team of like, yes, it's a good place to work, or we do a good mission, but also happens inside and how you work with each other. We did an episode a few weeks back on bad rumors. We talked about, what was it, Diana? It was the not rumors, the gossip.
Good gossip, the opposite.
Good gossip, right? Bad gossip. So like bad gossip is like, hey, I was on the, did you guys see what Philip did? Philip's awful, da 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 da. But the good gossip is, hey, did you see what Philip did? He crushed that client. Like, he did a great job with that, whatever that is. I think you're right. That's a good piece to that. If you're going to be on the team, you have to represent the team. Sometimes even when the team is losing or not doing as well, right? Sometimes there's those moments. What else should as the employee, if you're looking to say, hey, what role do I play in my own engagement inside of a company? What do you think?
One of the things we talked, I just talked to somebody from Idaho this morning here about this at a large hospital network, and they were talking about succession planning and the lack of succession planning, and maybe they haven't done a good job of succession planning to be able to build up the future leaders within the organization. And I kind of had this epiphany too earlier today, like that should be the succession planning organizationally, but there's also a succession planning internally for you as an employee. Maybe you don't want to do the same stuff that you initially started out doing, right? What are you doing to be able to set yourself up for success? Do you have an idea of a direction that you want to go? Otherwise, I think you start to, Don, we talk about one of the reasons why people work is inertia. Like I don't remember the commute to the job. I just showed up in the parking lot. I don't know how I got there. And you know why? Because this is what I always do. This is just what I always do. It loses its luster a little bit, and you're just now going through the motions. And I think the idea of succession planning internally is like, are you still intrigued by the thing that you're doing? Are you still desiring to do the thing that you're doing? Do you still bounce out of bed to be able to get to do the thing that you're doing? And I think if not, then okay, what is the next thing? What is that next thing, or that next thing that you want to learn, or the next thing you want to do, or the next thing? What is the next thing, so you can continue to kind of have that idea of internal success without waiting for your peers to just tell you you're successful. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But that has to drive internally at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to get to that place to where you just kind of you're just now going through the motions of what it is that you want to do or being told to do versus what it is that really flicks your switch. You know what I mean? Of what you get to do, so to speak. So it's a succession planning organizationally, but I think that's probably important for individuals too. Are you having those internal dialogues? I think that would help out your leadership, whatever organization you're in, if you're able to understand that about yourself and be able to answer those questions too. Like, what is it that you desire to do? What is it that you want to do? What direction are you trying to go? And I think that's an internal element as well as organizationally. I just kind of had that don't know if that answers your question. I think it does.
Yeah, it does. I think, Matt, that's a good direction to go with that, because I think you and I were talking about it, and for some reason it was at that steakhouse in Des Moines is what I'm thinking of, but it could just be because I've craved that steakhouse in Des Moines ever since we were there. It was really good. Cook your own steak, fantastic. What's the name of that place? Do you remember?
Rubes.
We'll give a shout out to
Steakhouse.
Rubes Steakhouse in Des Moines. We don't do ads, but we had a great experience out there. Fantastic old fashions, making Texas toast, cooking up some ribeyes. I even had a ribeye just in Matt's honor there. I usually don't do the ribeyes, but I did a ribeye this time just for Matt. But we were talking about how, like, in the 1950s, like, you watch those old 1950s movies and you talk about your responsibility to the firm, right? They talked about, like, you have a responsibility to the firm and this is what you have to do and you have to do. But I agree, Matt, 100%. Like, it's the company has to decide what their mission is and what their direction is and what they need. But then the employees, all of us, also have to decide what direction do we want to go and what do we need and what gets us out of bed in the morning. And sometimes those two things may get off from each other over time. And then it's either, can we find something different internally with the company, or is it time to move on to the next relationship, right? It may not be a forever kind of a match. So yeah, you have a role in that as an individual to know where your strengths are. Again, Bethany, you talked about using your strengths. You have to know what those are too, so you don't just come in. We've seen a lot of applicants, it's funny, lately, who they put on their resume that they can do everything. And Diana, I know you look at a lot of applications for companies and resumes, right? You see those, they report them like the unicorn. I'm highly organized, imaginative, technology driven, people driven.
Yeah, I mean, I look at those and I'm like, are you really? Are you really? It sounds like you just don't know your strength, or someone's lied to you. Like, I don't know.
You have American Idol syndrome. As somebody's told you your whole life, you are so good at everything, you should jump on a singing show even though you don't. Right? That's good. So, well, listen, this was our 200th episode of the People Centric Podcast, and I know you don't care. I know it. It's okay. You're just driving to work or driving home or on your morning walk or whatever, and you just wanted some little insights to this. But our insight for this 200th episode is, first of all, I just wanted our team to go around and talk about this because I think it's good for our team to talk about. So even if you didn't listen to that, I don't really care. It's fine. Our team got to do this, and we're going to be team client community all day. And so we're going to take care of our team first. But I do hope that as you listen to this, that you look at your own job and you think two things. One is, if you don't love what you're doing, ask yourself, why don't I love what I'm doing? And what could I do to help me start to love that job again? And then if you're doing all the things that we talked about, or some of the things we talked about, and you're putting that effort, then maybe it's time to challenge yourself and go find that job that you don't know that exists, that's out there. Maybe it is time for you to fire your employer and go find something that's better, that's a better fit for you. That's okay, right? It's okay. We don't live in the age anymore where people are with their employer for their entire career. You're worthy of finding what is worthy for you. So good. Any other thoughts for our listeners here from our team?
I mean, I just want to put out there that I think everyone has bad days. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to have a bad week, right? Like, I have not woken up and loved People Centric every single minute of every single day. Most of them, I'm going to say 99%.
Not now, Diana.
Here she
goes.
No,
being realistic, guys. It's okay to have bad days. Don't blow up your life or blow up, at your employer because of a bad day or a bad week. But really examine, is this bad day going to last 365 days? Because that's too long, right? Is this bad day just a moment in time, or is it a time for me to reflect? I no longer enjoy it. I no longer have passion. I no longer have the drive. I do need to find something different. And I think those are different things.
That's a really good point. I'll bet you just saved some people from quitting their jobs who were just like, I'm going to go into my office right now and quit the job. It's like, no. Sometimes there's bad seasons, and sometimes you have to work through those things, and something that, you might have to change something, be realistic about that. Or you might have to just work through something and then come out the other side of it. There's lots of that. But listen, you're worthy as a person. You're worthy to enjoy your career long-term and find what you need from it. So thanks a lot for joining us on this episode, and we can't wait to do 200 more episodes. Our whole team, I'm watching the faces of our whole team like, dude, that's a lot of episodes.
I don't know why I never realized that we're going to keep doing this thing. I don't know. That phrase just made me like, oh my gosh, we have more episodes.
We haven't run out of topics yet.
We haven't. Yeah,
it's fun. So, all right. Well, we'll catch you next time. Shoot us notes. We love to hear from you. Shoot us notes. Tell us some ideas for topics that you'd like to hear, or just say hi. We'd love to hear from you. So we'll see you next time on the People Centric Podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.